right, good morning and welcome to this SmartRoof training today, going over advanced 3D modeling. We're going to start off talking a little bit about the SmartRoof tool. We're going to give an introduction to the customer success team, go over some modeling best practices with the SmartRoof tool, show you how to insert different folds and dormers into a structure, as well as going through 10 different examples for residential sites, ranging from easy roofs to more medium roofs to more advanced roofs. About the SmartRoof tool, it makes it easy to design accurate 3D models and permit quality drawings. We've invested over a year of development into the tool, and it is made for advanced design teams as well as sales representatives. If you'd like to learn more about the SmartRoof tool, please visit our help center by going to help.aurorasolar.com and search for the word SmartRoof. About me, my name is Alex Baker. I'm a customer success analyst here at Aurora Solar. I mainly work with the enterprise level customers, and I have a background in both residential solar sales as well as residential solar finance, and I also have a degree in energy management and design from Sonoma State University. Here's a quick snapshot of the customer success team. We have Hadia, myself, Joniki, Kenneth, Mark, and Mauricio. We are all the customer success analysts, meaning that we work hand in hand with the customer to make sure you're fully onboarded, make sure your team is trained up, make sure you're aware of any changes or feature updates that we have in our software. So if you receive an email from one of us, just note that we are your direct point of contact with Aurora. So definitely make sure to save our phone number as well as our email if you're running into anything that's an urgent issue and you really need to speak with someone right away. We also have a dedicated support team that is Michelle, Matt, and Oscar. So if you send an email to support@aurorasolar.com, or if you use our help widget, the little question mark icon on the top right corner of your screen, to book a one-on-one screen share session in design, proposals, finance, billing questions, that would mainly be with one of them. So just note that, yeah, we're working really hard to make sure we can answer any questions that you have, any issues that you're having with the software. So definitely feel free to know that you can either email support or contact your customer success analyst directly. Diving into modeling best practices. So these are basically tricks that we recommend doing before you start modeling your home to make sure that you have an accurate site model. So in the bottom left corner of your satellite imagery, there are 4 buttons. On the far left, there's a button called Map Split. I typically start by clicking the Map Split button to split my screen into 2 views. The one on the left will default to the map view, which is an overhead 45-degree angled view that you can rotate to see the full roof profile. You can also toggle between map view and Google Street View, where you can walk alongside the front of the home to get a better idea of the nearby obstructions, trees, shading threats, pitch of the roof. And we also have a dedicated tool, the Street View Ruler, that I'm going to demonstrate in the webinar today, where you can take accurate 2D or 3D measurements of like maybe the height of a tree or the pitch of a roof. And then you also have different imagery sources available. So all new projects will default to Google HD imagery if it is available. You can also toggle between Google, Bing. You can upload your own custom image. If let's say your company has a drone image and you want to upload that nice high quality HD image, you can upload that and use our ruler tool or nearby objects to go ahead and scale that to the site. Also, if it's new construction, you have your own design plans, you can upload your own design plans and scale those as well using our ruler tool. And then lastly, if you really want the highest quality imagery, we have a partnership with Nearmap. So at additional cost, you can purchase a Nearmap image for your site to make sure you have a nice, crisp, clear imagery showing all the obstructions. You can see the entire roof line. And those are pretty inexpensive. I believe the starting price for those, like the highest price, is about $280 per image, and it goes down the larger package you buy of credits. And then once you select your imagery, you're familiar with your site, you start outlining your structure. It's really important to follow the 90-degree angle snapping effect. So once you place 2 basically nodes or clicks on the corners of the roof, you're gonna have an orange dotted line kind of guiding your cursor and automatically snapping it to make sure that you're drawing 90-degree angles. I would recommend following this for any traditional shaped home because it is gonna have perfectly 90-degree angles around the corners. And then lastly, if you do need to expand the satellite imagery, you can move your cursor to the outer edge of your satellite image, left click, and that will go ahead and expand that a little bit at a time. Now, there are some items that you may come across, some interesting features in a roof, and you're not quite sure how to assess those. Just note that we have a dedicated tool where you can insert different types of folds as well as dormers, which we'll cover in the next slide. So once you outline the perimeter of your structure, a green banner will pop up. that will say Edit Roof. And on the bottom left corner, you have these three options to choose different types of folds to add into your structure. So looking at the imagery that I have here, on the left, we have the flat fold, which is a flat section on top of the roof instead of like a pitched section. In the middle, we have the pitched fold where you have multiple changes in the pitch, and perhaps some of those roof planes go in the same direction. So in order to split that up and change the pitch independently, you do want to go ahead and insert a pitched fold. And then lastly, you have a vertical fold, which is appropriate for a Dutch gable overhang or any time where the ridgeline extends over one of the hips. You want to make sure that ridgeline is lifted up a little bit by inserting your vertical fold. So we'll demonstrate all three of these today in our designs. And then we also have three different types of dormers that you can add to your structure. The easiest way to distinguish a dormer is just to count the number of slopes. So you want to definitely utilize your map view, your street view, so that way you can get a really good angle of your dormer. So on the left, we have the gabled dormer, which has 2 slopes, ridgeline right down the middle, splitting it in half. Then we have the hip dormer, which has 1 additional slope on the front for a total of 3 slopes. And then the shed dormer is going to be a 1-slope dormer. And sometimes it's a little bit hard to see this just from a top-down image, but you will typically see a type of triangular shadow next to the dormer, indicating there's like a difference in the height between these 2 roof planes. But I typically utilize Street View or Map View to make sure that it is a 1-slope dormer. Now here are the 10 addresses that we'll be covering today, ranging from a simple hipped roof, going to a gabled roof to demonstrate unpitching. And then we're going to go ahead and show you how to insert a few different types of folds, like the flat fold, the pitched fold. We're going to show you how to add dormers, how to assess a split roof, where you have basically different ridgeline heights, but the same eave-line height, creating the split effect. And then when you have an image that's a little bit skewed or off to the side. And then for the more advanced roofs at the very end, we're going to show you how to deal with structures that you actually want to draw in different pieces because maybe they have different eave heights all around. So that would be a technique called merging roofs. And then in the last design, we'll go ahead and throw in a vertical fold as well. And that will conclude the webinar right around 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. For more resources following the webinar, please visit our Help Center by going to help.aurorasolar.com. Search for SmartRoof for more videos and articles related to our tool. You can also search Speak with Support, and that will also bring up the option to schedule a one-on-one screen share meeting with someone on our support team if you really just want to jump on a quick meeting and kind of show them what you're talking about. You can always, of course, send us an email to support@aurorasolar.com. And then the last thing I just want to quickly mention is we do have a blog, and this is a really great resource. I typically recommend my customers, specific articles that I've read that I found was really helpful to kind of explain maybe a new incentive, a new net metering program in a state, or just general terminology regarding our tool or industry terms. So if you go to blog.aurorasolar.com, I would definitely recommend subscribing. That way you get updates weekly about new articles and tips that we recommend. All right, so I'll just pause for a moment to see if we have any questions so far before I go ahead and jump into the Aurora software. All right, welcome to Aurora. So before we get started with our drawing, I just want to quickly demonstrate some of the items that I briefly mentioned in the slide deck. So the first thing I want to quickly show you is your image source. So in the very top menu towards the left-hand side, you have this drop down. Now, new projects will all default to the Google HD imagery. For this example, I'm actually using a near map image because it's typically a little bit more recent. If they've made, maybe it's new construction and it's only been built a couple months ago, near map may actually give you like an up-to-date image of that site. But you can definitely toggle between these 3 image resources that are free: Google, Google HD, and Bing. You can also upload your own custom image by clicking this button right here. And it does need to be a picture file, so make sure that it's not a PDF. It can only be like a PNG or a JPEG. And then if you want to purchase a near map image, you would just click Get HD Imagery. And then you would basically select which date you wanted to use, but you will need to have near map credits added to your account. So if you go up to the settings section by clicking your name when you're logged in and going to on-demand services, you can go ahead and purchase a bundle of near map images. And the starting package, I believe, is $12 for a set of 5. But of course, if you buy a larger package, the price comes down per near map image. So once you've selected your image, it is important that you have the little green project location on the center of your home. That way, when you click the map split button in the bottom left-hand corner, the imagery centers right around this home. So right now we're in the map view and I can click this rotate button to rotate a full 360 degrees. I can also click on the street view button and I can walk alongside the front of the home and I can zoom in using my scroll wheel or using the plus or minus button here. Or if you have like a dedicated area on your laptop mouse for scrolling, you can use that as well. This will give me a better idea of all the nearby trees that I may need to account for, generally the height of my roof, the pitch of my roof. So there's a lot of great information that I can get from Street View. Now, if you're ever not sure if you're looking at the right home in Street View, if you zoom out in the screen on your right, either using this minus button or your scroll wheel, you'll notice that you have this little camera angle. And this angle is telling you where you're looking. It's basically your angle of perspective. So if I zoom in on the screen on my left, sorry, move back over there. So if I zoom in on this screen, notice how narrow it gets, and if I zoom out, it gets really wide. So this is a great way to tell if you are looking at the right home, and then of course you can always look for your little green project location in both screens. So I'm going to temporarily close this map split button, and I'm going to quickly show you how you would navigate. So if you have a mouse with a scroll wheel, that is going to be my preferred recommendation for navigation. So if you need to pan your imagery, if I want to move this home up, I can hold down on my scroll wheel and then move my cursor up while I'm holding down. If I don't have a scroll wheel, if I don't have a mouse, you can also left click on this little pan button here, and then you can hold down and then release when you want to stop panning. You can also rotate from a 2D to a 3D angle pretty seamlessly in this design view. So if you have right click on your mouse, you can just hold down right click, and then you can move your cursor up and down, left and right, and you can easily navigate from 2D to 3D. If you don't have a mouse, you can also utilize this 3D compass tool up here. Now it's basically split into three pieces. We have the vertical toolbar, where you would navigate from a vertical to a horizontal rotation. We have this circular toolbar, which is going to be a horizontal rotation. So if I left click on one of these sides, I can move my cursor to the right or the left to rotate. I can also click on a fixed point if I want to make it due north or make it due south. Now this 3D cube as well is really helpful. You can just left click and hold this, and essentially it's like the same as right clicking. You can move it up, down, left, right, and you can rotate seamlessly. You can also left click once on the 3D side of the cube to just have a fixed rotation of about like a 45-degree angle, and then to go back to a top-down view, just left click the 2D side of the cube. All right. Now, one thing I want to quickly just demonstrate for you is the ability to take a measurement using Google Street View imagery. So this tool is going to be located in the bottom left corner of your screen. We have these four buttons: Map, Split, Animate, Ruler, and Street View Ruler. So we're going to demonstrate the Street View Ruler tool. Now this tool can be used for a few different purposes. One way you can use it is to do like a vertical measurement for, let's say, a tree, like a nearby fence. Maybe you want to do the height of the eave. You can also use it to take a horizontal measurement. So you can do like the length from one side of the roof to another. That would basically be how you do a 2D measurement. You can also do a 3D measurement, which would be like a pitch measurement. And so to do that, it's basically illustrated right here in this little step right here. You would actually place 3 nodes at distinct points on the roof. So if I wanted to measure the pitch of this roof, I would go ahead and place 3 nodes, one here, and one there. Now it doesn't really matter which places you put the nodes, but the whole purpose for accuracy is to make sure that when you place nodes on this roof, you can match them up with the nodes on this roof. So really quickly, I'm going to demonstrate how to do a pitch measurement for this roof right here. So because if you look in this imagery, I can't quite see the right edge. I'm not going to place a node there because it's going to be a little bit difficult to match that up perfectly. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to place my first node right at the middle of the roof. And then I'm going to place my second node right at the top of the roof. And then my third node, it's a little bit cut off, but I believe it goes to right about here. So I'm just going to put this third one there. Now, when I place these 3 nodes, it's going to automatically take me to step 2. And now it says move points to corresponding positions. Notice how this screen's now lit up. All I need to do is match up these 3 nodes where I place them in this screen. So I want to put number 1 right in the middle of my roof. That looks to be about the middle. Perfect. And I'm going to place number 2 above it. And it's really important to match these up exactly where you put them here for the most accurate measurement. And then our third one, I'm just going to go ahead and put right about here. Okay. Once I've matched up my 3 nodes, I'm going to click the Done button. And now it's going to tell me that the pitch of this roof in the front is about 25.9 degrees. So it's really cool. It's telling me exactly how pitched I need to make this one roof plane. So I'm going to close Map Split, and before I start my drawing, I'm just going to kind of hide this temporarily. So I'm going to click on the View drop-down, top menu, and I'm going to hide my rulers because technically it's a ruler measurement. And I'm going to orient this back to north, and then let's go ahead and start outlining our structure. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select SmartRoof Pitched, and then I'm just going to place nodes on all 4 corners of the roof. Now, when I seal this off, you're always going to have this green Edit Roof banner at the top of your screen. If you don't see this banner, maybe you've accidentally exited out of it, to re-enter, just double left click on your structure, and you'll notice your lines will change to like dotted lines instead of solid white lines, and you have this green banner at the top of your screen. So the next step I want to do for this design is I want to make sure I have the right pitch for the roof. So if I left click on this one pitch, in the right sidebar, it's going to tell me the default pitch is 20 degrees. Now, if I turn back on my ruler, my measurement was actually 25.9 degrees. So let's go ahead and start making adjustments to that. Actually, I think it's this roof. So I'll make this one 20, I'll just do 26 degrees. Now, when I adjust the pitch of that roof, I want to do the same thing for this roof because it does look like they have the same pitch. So I'm going to make this one 26 as well. All right. Now, the next thing I want to do is I want to line up these 2 pitches. Now, you can actually group select 2 pitches at the same time by holding the Shift key on your keyboard and left-clicking both roofs that you want to select. And then I'm going to go ahead and make these appear. I think this roof needs to be a little bit steeper because the line starts here and then it appears to go larger than the satellite imagery. So if it appears larger, it means it's less steep than it needs to be. So I'm going to go ahead and start increasing my pitch by clicking into here. And I can either use the up arrow on my keyboard, or I can use my scroll wheel to just adjust it 1 degree at a time. And I think I'll just lower that. I'll just do 26. It probably has the same pitch as these other roofs. So if I double click, now I exit the edit mode, and now I can see my structure is matching up. So I'm going to go ahead and delete my ruler. And then the last thing I want to do is I want to lift up the height because I believe it was about 2 stories. So I'm going to make this a 2-story structure. All right, looks perfect. So I'm going to go ahead and save that, and then we're going to move on to number 2. All right, so for number 2, let's follow the same process. So I'm going to go ahead and open up Map Split. And sometimes you don't have a 45-degree view, only a top-down view. So let's go ahead and try Street View. Now in the Street View, I can walk to the front of the home. And this is a really common structure that you'll run into where the ridge line goes all the way across the roof, splitting it in half. This is called a gabled structure. So it's a really easy structure to draw, but you do have to demonstrate a new technique that we're going to go over called unpitching. So for this roof, I just want to kind of pay attention to make sure both sides are symmetrical. I'm kind of eyeing the height. It's about 2 stories. The pitch doesn't seem very steep. It's probably pretty close to about 20. So I'm going to close Map Split, and then I'm going to start outlining the perimeter of my structure, selecting SmartRoof, and just placing my 4 nodes on the corners. All right, when I place 4 nodes, how the SmartRoof tool will always work is the number of nodes that you place will create the same number of slopes. So if I place 4 nodes, it's going to create 4 different slopes. Now for this structure, I know the ridgeline goes north-south, and I only have 2 slopes. Now if you have a gabled structure, typically the direction of the ridgeline means that you do not have roof planes going that direction. So because this goes north-south, I want to remove the 2 roof planes that are north and south. So if I click on the north roof plane, in the right sidebar, there's a button at the top that says unpitch. If I click this button, it's going to go ahead and remove that roof plane. Now, if I made a mistake and I actually don't want to unpitch that one, I can either hit the undo button here, do the undo command, Control Z or Command Z on an Apple, or I can click this other button when I select the Eve line and do make pitched to re-add it. So I'm gonna go ahead and remove that one, and let's remove the south. By the way, you can also hit delete or backspace on your keyboard once you've selected that. All right, now we'll rotate into 3D, and there we have our roof pitch. Now it looks pretty close to the satellite imagery, so I'm not gonna mess with the pitch. What I do wanna do is I wanna double click to exit the edit mode, and I wanna lift up the height of my structure. Now I quickly showed you in the last demonstration that you can just choose the story height. You can also, of course, enter the eave height, the height to the roof base. A third way that you can do this is once you're in 3D, you'll notice this little white arrow will appear. And if you hover your cursor over that arrow, it will turn red, and you can left click and drag it up, and then you can watch the screen on your right until it gets to be about 2 stories. There we go. Now I don't normally use this height measurement unless I'm adjusting like a specific eave height to match a structure, or if I'm doing a tree height, but this is a third way that you can lift up the entire structure of the roof. So I'll save this one and we'll move on to number 3. All right, so for our third easy roof, let's do the same process where we go ahead and open up map split. We can rotate this image. Now it looks like a pretty simple hip structure, but we do have something interesting going on. In the middle, we have a flat section instead of the internal lines intersecting. So if I jump into Street View, I can also see that the top is perfectly flat. Doesn't seem that we have an extra intersection where it normally would probably be somewhere around here. We have this flat section preventing it. So for this site, we're gonna wanna add in what's called a flat fold, which is gonna give us this extra flat section at the top. But we're gonna add that after we've outlined the perimeter of our structure. So I'll select SmartRoof Pitched, and I'm gonna go ahead and just trace out the shape so that way I get the right number of slopes. All right, and I can always drag these external lines to make sure I actually am on the eave line, because as you may notice here, it does affect where your internal lines go. So you do want to make sure you're lined up correctly on the outside. All right, once everything is adjusted, let's go ahead and add in the flat fold. So to do that, we're going to go ahead and select the flat fold from the Edit Roof banner on the far left. So this is our first fold, so we're going to go ahead and left click it once, and then just simply move our cursor over and watch how it starts adding this flat fold. I can zoom in with my scroll wheel, and I can pan as well while I'm in this function. And I'm just going to move it down until all these lines intersect perfectly. And then I'm going to left click to place it. And there we have our flat fold at the top. If I wanted to get this a little bit more perfect, I could just click on one of my roofs and start playing with the pitch to try to get this to line up just a little bit better. Okay, that looks perfect. So I'll double click, and it is a 1-story home, so I don't need to make any further adjustment. So I'll save this and we'll move on to number 4. All right, so for our next medium roof, we're gonna go ahead and do a pitched fold. So to show you what I'm talking about, we're gonna be outlining this structure in the back. It's a little bit hard to tell what's happening from a top-down view, but I can already kind of see in this grainy imagery that we have a ridgeline going north-south, and then we have different colors on the roof. So I can't quite tell what that is, so I'm gonna go ahead and open up Map Split. Now in the Map Split, we're a little bit more zoomed out, but I can see that ridgeline a little bit more clearly. Let's try Street View. So the awesome thing about Street View is I found you can typically zoom in pretty close to correctly assess the pitch of the roof. Now looking at this roof right here, I can count the number of slopes. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 slopes, but it appears all of the slopes either go east or west. We don't have any north or south because it's basically a gabled roof, but it has these additional pitch changes. So technically it's called a gambreled roof, which is gonna be like a barn shape. So for this structure, we're gonna go ahead and start by making just a really simple trace around the perimeter so we can get that rectangle shape. So I'll do my best to follow these lines even though they're not perfectly clean. I just wanna make sure I have the right shape, okay? Now because I have ridgelines running north-south, let's go ahead and unpitch the north and unpitch the south. Okay, so now we have our gabled structure. Now let's make it a gambreled structure. So to do that, if we want to add more slopes to a gabled structure, we want to use our pitched fold tool. So this is really easy to use. I just left click once, then I move my cursor over to where I see the first pitched fold. So on the right, I can't see anything, so I'm going to go ahead and follow on the left. And if I zoom in enough, I can pretty much match this up, and I'll click to place that. If I zoom in more, I can actually see a measurement from the side. So I actually want to repeat this on the other side to make sure it's perfectly symmetrical. There we go. Okay, let's add in 2 more. All right, so there we have the correct number of slopes. If I rotate into 3D, it does not quite match the shape that I'm going for. So the next thing I want to do is make adjustments to the pitch. So to do this, I'm going to go ahead and click on the first roof that I want to adjust. Now this defaulted to a 45-degree pitch, but I know it's much less steep, so I'm going to start with maybe about 20, and I'll repeat the same thing for the other side. I can also hold down Shift and click on 2 roofs at the same time, and let's make both of these steeper. Let's do 60. And then for the third roof, we can click on both of these, and we can just try manually adjusting this until we start to get the right shape. All right, looks pretty good. Let's try increasing the middle one a little bit more. And then the top one, let's decrease that a little bit. All right, this looks great. So I'll save this, and we're going to move on to number 5. All right, so another medium roof we're going to demonstrate today is going to how to add dormers to your structure. So you can pretty clearly see these dormers in the front. Looks like we have a gabled dormer because we have a ridgeline splitting the dormer in half, 1 slope on each side, and then I can't quite tell what's happening here, so I probably want to utilize additional imagery. Now this one was interesting. We have this extension sort of on the back, but if I'm thinking about like the shape of this, it kind of looks like a hip dormer because we have 3 slopes on the dormer. So I think to make this drawing easier on myself, I want to go ahead and just add this as a hip dormer instead of drawing the entire roof perimeter. So anytime I know that I can add in dormers, I'm not going to worry about like the front corners in the shape. I'm going to keep my shape really simple. But before I draw, I do want to open up Map Split just to confirm what I'm looking at. I can actually see a third gabled dormer in the front. If I rotate this, I can see a ridgeline running east-west. So it's going to start with a really simple gabled structure. And I can also jump into Street View as well. And there's that third dormer. So for this shape, I'm going to start off making a really simple rectangular shape. And I'm going to ignore where the dormers go out to, and I'm only going to bring it to about here. There we go. So let's unpitch the east and the west. And then before we add our dormers, it's really important to match the pitch. So I'm going to go to the side here, and I'm going to kind of eye this pitch. Now, if you want to adjust the pitch for both roofs at the same time, you can just check this box as well. And this applies to all faces. So if you only want to do 2 slopes in a 4-slope roof, you don't want to use this function. But because I have a gabled roof and I know they're the same, I'm going to go ahead and check that off. So I'm going to increase that until I get about the right shape. Looks pretty close. Now let's start adding in our dormers. So the dormer tool is located in the far right of the Edit Roof banner. I'm going to click on the gabled dormer, and then I'm going to drag it over, and then I'm just going to left click right where the dormer intersects with the roof. And then I'm going to adjust it using these nodes to get the right length, width, and the right shape. Okay, let's add in our second dormer here. Same process. And then our third dormer, this one's a little bit hard to see. All right, so there's the front of the home. Now let's do the back of the home, this large hip dormer. All right, there we go. Now, one other step that you may want to take for a dormer, and this is only necessary if perhaps it's an asymmetrical dormer, maybe one of the side slopes is different than the other side, or if the eave line of the dormer is actually higher than the eave line of the roof, you want to do a function called convert to roof. So when you click convert to roof, it's going to make this dormer an independent structure. Notice if I click on this structure, all these dormers are basically selected as one, but this one's now independent, so I can adjust this height if I wanted to independently. And then setbacks will automatically show if you have those set, of course, in your settings menu with the dormer. If you don't have the dormer converted to the roof, then you do need to check this box to show the setbacks as well. All right, now that's everything I want to do for the structure, so I'll go ahead and save that, and we'll move on to number 6. All right, another medium roof we're going to show you is a split roof. Now the splits you can kind of see from this grainy top-down image, but see how we have these shadows here? That's because we have a difference in the height of the slopes. So basically this slope is higher than this slope, which is why we have this shadow. This slope is higher than that slope, which is why we have a shadow there. We don't have a shadow here, so my guess is this slope is higher than that one. And then it looks like we have a gabled dormer on the front. So I can open a map split and I can rotate, and you can actually see those splits in the roof, front, in the back, and on the side. And I can also jump into Street View to take a good look at those as well. So notice that we have different ridgeline heights, but the same eave line height. So for this type of structure, it's pretty simple, but you do have to pay close attention to make sure that you're outlining the perimeter 100% correctly. So what I like to visualize in my mind is that I'm just looking at a two-dimensional shape, and I'm just tracing out the entire perimeter. Now, in the last design, I told you that you can just kind of ignore the dormer line if you're just going to add this afterwards. So I'm going to pretend this eave line goes straight across all the way to this corner. So I'll just start with my top left and watch how I outline every single corner. Bring it down to the right, down, and then all the way across, up to this corner left, and then we'll seal this off. Now this is going to create quite a few slopes, and if you're new to unpitching, it may be a little bit difficult to see which ones you need to keep and which ones you want to remove. So one technique you could use as you're getting started is if you double click outside to exit the edit mode, click on your structure, select move, you can move this to the side. And here you have a side-by-side between your drawing and the satellite image. Now anytime you have a split roof, you want to count those as two separate roofs because it's not a continuous roof plane. So here we have two in the north, it's these two. And then we have 1, 2, 3 in the south, these three. So it looks like we're keeping all of our north and all of our south, and we're just going to remove our east and west. Pretty simple. So I'm going to move this back over, and then I'm going to click done, and then I'm going to double click to re-enter the edit mode, and let's start unpitching all of the east and all of the west roofs. And you can also just hit delete once you select them on your keyboard if that's a little bit quicker for your workflow. So the last thing I want to do is to go ahead and add in our dormer in the front. And there we have our split roof. So I'll save this and we're going to move on to number 7. Okay, now sometimes you may have a site that has what's called a skewed image. Now I'm using a near map image here, so it's not as skewed, but if you look at the original image in the map split, you'll see what I'm talking about. Now we're a little bit zoomed out, but see how the structure in this image looks like it's off to the top left. It's kind of shifting that way. So this is what I would define as a skewed image. So sometimes you'll be able to see the side of the home if it's extremely skewed. So if you follow along with all of these lines on the edge, it may kind of throw you off. So my best recommendation to deal with a skewed image is just to click on the 4 corners of the roof and ignore the like the rake lines or the eave lines, because those may throw you off a little bit. So mainly just focus on the corners, and then when you draw an outline, it may not exactly match up with the satellite image, but that's okay because the image is a little, throwing you off a little bit. But to quickly understand the roof, you do want to utilize additional imagery like the street view, for instance. Let's see, I was able to get it to work before. There we go. Sometimes I guess you can move that and you'll get the street view to work. So the screen on my left, focusing on the front of the roof, notice that we have a higher eave line in the front. We have a one slope dormer on top of the roof that's a shed dormer. And then on the left, we have this detached garage that'll probably just draw as its own piece. It'll be much simpler. Now, if I move to the left a little bit more, I can see that the pitch of this roof is pretty steep. So I want to keep that in mind. And then looks like the shed dormer kind of intersects with a chimney. And then we have a ridgeline right going through the chimney at the top that you can kind of see from this map view. Now I can't really see the back of the home. I can sort of tell what's happening here. Now, one technique that you can utilize sometimes if you have a rural area and you happen to have a road behind the home, if you move your little street view location to the street behind, you go back to street view, you can actually see the back of the home for this instance. Now, if they have a fence or a bunch of trees, it may not work, but if you see that it's pretty clear the back of the home, it may be worth trying that. Sometimes I'll come across a home that's maybe in a gated community, and maybe there's like a highway behind it or a road behind it. I can try moving to that road, and sometimes I can like peek over their fence and get an idea of the pitch or any obstructions that are on the roof. So this is one continuous roof plane with two higher eaves, one lower eave, and then it looks like by the shadow, a pretty steep pitch. So let's go ahead and start outlining our structure. So I'm going to draw this in two pieces. I'm going to draw the garage last. So I'm just going to trace out my shape here. And I want to make sure to draw all the corners to account for that higher eave line in the front. Okay, so I know the ridgeline runs north-south, so let's start unpitching any north and south roof planes. Okay, now in the front, I'm left with two roofs. It's basically creating the split roof effect, but I know that this eave line's higher, so if I click on this roof and I unpitch it, it'll go ahead and bring that up and make one continuous roof plane. Let's do the same thing in the back, and I'm going to shift select both of these, and I always want to keep the lower eave line. So let's just get rid of the higher one. There we go. Now let's go ahead and increase the pitch of this roof. It was pretty steep, so I think I'm going to go a little bit higher. All right, that looks good. Let's go ahead and add in our shed dormer in the front. So I know that the shed dormer runs from here to about this corner. And so now I'm just going to take it in a little bit. Looks great. And then let's go ahead and add in our garage piece here. We'll unpitch those pieces to make it a gabled structure. And then we're going to make this one a little bit more pitched. Okay. Now the last thing I want to quickly do is I want to make sure I'm adjusting the pitch of the shed dormer correctly. So let's jump back into the street view and do a quick side-by-side. And let's increase that pitch. All right, looks great. So even with a little bit misleading satellite imagery, I mean, this one wasn't as skewed, but we couldn't really see the ridge line. So it really was the takeaway here is to look at your street view imagery and your map view to get a better understanding of your site. And for the shed dormer placement, I really paid attention to like where the edge of the shed dormer runs to, about the chimney line, and about this line with the eave line. So I'll save this and we're gonna move on to number 8. All right, so this home isn't actually too challenging, but it is one of our more advanced roofs just because you have to draw this in a few different pieces. The reason why is because if you go into your additional imagery sources, follow the eave line of this second story. So if we walk all the way around, following this eave line. Watch how it goes up here, which is why you have these higher hips. But in the front, it comes down to about here and it goes straight across. So there's never any intersection with these first story sections. So I've decided I want to draw this as one piece with dormers with higher eave lines on the sides. Now the front of the home is pretty interesting. I'm noticing very different shapes happening. On the left side, we have a split roof. Notice how we have higher ridgeline here, lower ridgeline there, but basically the same eave lines if you trace this one out to that there. That's creating the split in the front. And on the right side, we have a hipped garage shape. So because I have such different shapes, I could attempt to draw these all as one, but I think it'd just be easier if I drew these as 3 pieces. So let's start with our top piece. Let's go ahead and just trace out this rectangular shape. Okay, so I'm going to shift select both of these pieces and I'm going to raise up my eave line. Okay, and let's go ahead and add in some gabled dormers here. And I can always duplicate a dormer if I know they're the same size by clicking the duplicate button here. And then let's make this piece 2 stories. All right, so I'm going to show you a technique called merging. It's a really simple technique. There's no button or function for it. All you need to do is overlay your pieces slightly to basically have the SmartRoof tool have them overlap exactly how you want them to be. The key is to make sure you have the right height so they merge correctly. So I'm going to click on our front left structure here. And I'm just going to trace out the shape, making sure to get all the corners so I can create that split roof effect. And I'm going to overlap these just slightly. So I'm going to have this line just barely go over. You don't want to intersect too much, and you want to make sure that the eave line is not laying right on top of the other eave line because that may cause issues with your design. So I'm going to unpitch a couple of these additional slopes. And then I can always drag this line over to get the right pitch. And if I double click, watch how these automatically merge. Okay, let's add in our last piece. And we'll unpitch this on one side, double click, and these all automatically merge. And there we have the right shape that we're looking for. So I'll save this and we're going to move on to our last 2 designs of the day. All right, so number 9 and 10 are actually going to be next door neighbors. And we're going to focus first on this red home for number 9. So we're going to open up our map split and we're going to take a nice look at our structure. So the top story I can already tell needs to be drawn as its own piece because the eave line never intersects with the story below. And that's just a gabled structure. Then we have this garage piece that kind of intersects right about there. If I walk around to the back, this is the most complex shape that we have right here. We basically have a higher eave line in the front, right behind the chimney, which is why you have this open area. We have this awning in the front that's sort of connected to this. So I'm going to go ahead and draw that together. And then we could probably just add that as a dormer. So I'm thinking I can draw this in about 1, 2, 3 plus a dormer. So let's do the top story first. I usually do this first just because I can lift up the height easier and it doesn't get lost into my drawing if I don't have the right height. So I'm going to unpitch these 2 and I'm going to make this one 2 stories. Now we'll move on to our second one right here. And then we'll unpitch a little bit. No need to adjust the height. So there's our first 2 pieces. Okay, for our third piece, this is our most complex shape. Just want to make sure to place nodes on every single corner here. All right, and then I just want to make sure I'm unpitching the right roofs. So let's do unpitch here, unpitch here. We want to raise this eave line up, so I'll unpitch that piece. And then as far as the right side goes, we just want to unpitch this piece. And then we don't want to worry about that, so let's just double click and these will automatically merge. And there we have that front section. And then I want to add a dormer to the back here. So let's do the gabled dormer. All right, so there we have our first design. So I'll do a quick save on that. And then let's go ahead and move next door to the gray home. Now this one's a little bit harder to do. There's one new thing that we're going to show you in this, which is called a vertical fold. You may notice these vertical folds here, 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 and there. You can see the shadows where basically the ridgeline extends over the hip, which is why you have this shadow here. So if I jump into Street View, we can see that all a little bit better. So let me match this up. So on the left side, we have something interesting going on. We basically have this extension in the back. It's like a one sloped roof. So I'll show you how to add that at the very end. Here's one vertical fold, there's two vertical folds. Notice the second story never intersects with the ground or with the first story. And I can also jump around to the front. And here's the most complex aspect of it. We basically have a vertical fold here, and then we have one continuous slope all the way down to about here, where we had that valley. So I want to make sure to draw this all as one piece so I can have a continuous slope. So let's get started with this one. So let's start with the second story. We'll just do a really simple square shape. And then we're going to add in our vertical folds. So we'll do one here and one there. And then I'm going to raise this one up to be 2 stories. So there's piece 1. Now for piece 2, let's do this really simple shape here. And I'll make it gabled on that side, and then we'll add in our vertical fold in the front. And I'll double click and watch how those merge. Looks good so far. Let's do the third piece. This is the most complex piece. So I'm going to select all of the corners here. Because I want this to be a continuous slopes, I want to combine this all as one. Now I want these to merge, so I just want to overlap these a little bit. All right, so let's add in our fold. And I'm going to jump back into map split so you can see this a little bit better. All right, so if I'm looking at this, we have one slope. So number one, I want to remove this one here. And then if this is the lower eve line, I want to unpitch this one. Now it combines it as one slope. Now the issue that this causes though is because we combine this as one slope, it kind of lowered, actually it raised this eve line up. So that's why you have this asymmetry effect going on here. So all I want to do is click on the eve line and I want to lower that. And now those are about the same. And if I double click, these all automatically merge, but I do want to lower this roof now because now this eve line is lower. All right, perfect. So the last piece I want to do today is this little extension. This is pretty simple. I just want to overlap this a little bit. And then I only want to keep one slope. So I'm going to just select these 3, unpitch those, and then I'm going to decrease my pitch significantly. And then I just want to lower the eve line so this roof is below. If I double click, these all automatically merge. And there we have our last advanced roof of the day. So I'll save that. Now that concludes our final design of the day. We actually finished a few minutes early, so I'll stick around for any questions you may have regarding some of the designs I had today, anything you want me to revisit. Now, one thing I don't want to add, following the webinar, please go to our Help Center and search for SmartRoof. And we've got a few different articles, but what I would personally recommend is the SmartRoof Best Practices and Tips. This is an article that I created for you all to make sure that you kind of get a recap of everything that we covered in the webinar. So this basically shows you just screenshots as well as GIFs on how to do the different functions using the SmartRoof tool, like expanding your satellite imagery, when you're outlining your roof, going ahead and unpitching your roof, editing the dimensions of the roof, and then different types of dormers and folds that you might run into. So I would probably recommend visiting this or bookmarking it. It'll really help you out as you're getting started to make sure that you really have the best practices when using our tool. And of course, if you're not familiar, we also have the help widget in the top right-hand corner of the screen. If you click that and click need to speak with support, speak with a specialist, you can book a one-on-one help session with finance, proposals, smart roof modeling and design help, as well as billing questions. So I had a question come in from Matt. You want to know if we can show you how to use tools for new construction. So it'll be a little bit difficult for me to kind of show you unless I had an actual example of like plans to upload. But anytime you have new construction, let's say you have like a blank field or something, and you want to upload your own imagery, you go ahead and click this drop down and select upload. And when you click upload, you would basically select a file from your computer that you can go ahead and add to your screen. And then we have this ruler tool here in the bottom left-hand corner. So when you click the ruler tool, you can basically, let me just turn off my imagery for a second so it's not distracting. So when you have the ruler tool, you can go ahead and click and place a measurement. Let's say the side of your design plan is going to be about 50 feet. I can actually click on this and make it 50 feet. When you upload your design plan, you have the ability to basically scale it by clicking and dragging one of the corners, and you basically just want to line up one of the sides to your ruler tool measurement. So once you upload your own image, let me double check. I'm not sure if I have one uploaded or not. Okay, so I think I actually have an image uploaded here. Let me just toggle off all my other images. So here we have a custom image that I uploaded. I think this is just like a sample that one of my associates had uploaded himself. But once you upload a custom image, you can click on this pencil icon, and that allows you to edit it. So the best way that I would recommend doing is if you know that one of the sides, I don't know if this one actually has a measurement. Assuming your design plan has a measurement, let's say this side was about 25 feet, you can draw your ruler measurement and kind of see where you're at. And if it's only 16 feet, you could just make this 25. And then you can edit your image and you can basically just drag that out until it's about 25. I can play with that a little bit more. But basically, once this side is 25 feet, you know your image is to scale. And then at that point, you would basically just use our SmartRoof tool to trace out the perimeter. And then, of course, you want to make sure you get all the corners. And then hopefully with your plan set, you have some images of like street view or like the front view of the house to really get a better understanding. But this one actually has the slope measurements in there, so that would be helpful. Looks like perhaps there's a vertical fold here. A little bit hard to tell, so obviously you can't completely draw it just from a top-down roof outline, but if you do have additional imagery, once you scale this, I utilize that to make sure I have an accurate model to represent the design plans. Does that answer your question? All right, wonderful. You're welcome. All right, any other questions before I conclude the SmartRoof webinar today? All right, you're welcome, Chris. It was my pleasure. All right, well, if there are no more questions, I'm going to go ahead and conclude the SmartRoof webinar today. As I mentioned, following the webinar, go ahead and visit our Help Center by either clicking the Help tab or going to help.aurorasolar.com. Search for that SmartRoof Best Practices and Tips article to learn more about our tool. And then if you have any additional questions, you can always send us an email to support@aurorasolar.com, and we'd be happy to help you out. Thank you all so much for taking some time out of your Friday to attend, and I hope you all have a great rest of your week and enjoy your weekend. Thank you and have a nice day.